Tonight, we're going to jump in here and continue our look at William Branham and his teaching. This is, hopefully, I can get a couple of videos in here. This is Leaving the Message. It's a couple of, I believe it's a couple former message believers that giving their testimony, different things. So let's see how it goes.
The explosive article, Racist Teachings Permeate Through Message Churches Across U.S., has been picked up by news agencies across the United States, capturing attention of viewers and readers nationwide. First published by the Arizona Daily Star through journalists Emily Hamer and Tim Steller, the report has exposed systemic racism deeply rooted in the Message movement, a cult following of the controversial Pentecostal preacher William Branham. Their investigation featured powerful accounts from Martin Maynay, a young black man raised in the movement, alongside other former members who revealed the overt and covert racism embedded in the teachings of Branham and perpetuated by his modern-day followers. The article's impact has been profound, sparking debates and outrage over the ongoing influence of Branham's ideologies. Hamer and Steller's meticulous research, which included interviews, archival sermons, and video evidence, paints a troubling picture of how Branham's legacy continues to harm communities today. The journalist's investigation not only sheds light on the sect's disturbing racial doctrines, but also highlights the resilience of individuals like Martin, who have chosen to speak out against the toxic environment they endured. The investigation centers around William Branham, leader of the post-World War II healing revivals, whose teachings have shaped the Message movement for decades. Branham's sermons are riddled with racist ideologies that glorify segregation and denigrate interracial relationships. In a 1965 sermon, Branham explicitly stated, quote, "You cannot be a Christian and be an integrationist. That's exactly right. God even separates his nations." He referred to himself as a segregationist, claiming that racial purity was divinely ordained and integration was a sin. Branham's stance on interracial marriage was equally egregious. He described such unions as high breeding, equating them to a violation of God's natural order. His use of metaphors, such as likening interracial relationships to mixing different flowers in a garden, underscored his belief that racial separation was mandated by God. These teachings have left a lasting mark on the Message community, where pastors continue to preach against interracial marriage, often quoting Branham verbatim. The investigative report by Hamer and Steller highlighted how Branham's racist teachings remain alive in the Message churches across the United States. The journalists reviewed video sermons from more than a dozen pastors, many of whom defended Branham's views. Some pastors argued that interracial marriage, while not explicitly sinful, would lead to marriage problems due to cultural differences, a thinly veiled attempt to justify racial segregation.
And I like to put it's still being taught in all the Message churches that I know of.
Others went further, openly condemning interracial unions as violations of divine law. Former members like Martin Maynay and Miko Tipping provided first-hand accounts of how these teachings shaped their lives. Martin, a black teenager raised in the Branham Tabernacle in Jeffersonville, Indiana, recalled being forbidden from dating a white girl because it was considered a sin. According to Martin, "You live in a community where they're like, yes, you are our brother. You are equal to us. But you may not, under any circumstances, date our daughters." Martin emotionally described the subtle yet damaging.
Now, you can marry, and they do happen, Hispanic. Whites can marry Hispanic. Now I know of a couple that came from South Africa that happened to be, he was black and she is he is black and she is white. They're still living. God bless them, as far as I know. So they had to deal with that. But normally within the Message church in the United States, that does not occur. And in Black Africa, Um, it's generally the church is bigger in Africa than it is in the United States or any other country. They have taken on this message from William Branham, thinking he's a prophet of God, where this and other videos break down a lot of the foolish teachings that Branham taught, and this is pretty much um, he's speaking as a prophet. Therefore, you cannot challenge him, even though he may or may not say, "Thus saith the Lord." But absolutely, you do not challenge the prophet.
Racism he endured. For Miko Tipping, the experience was similarly disheartening. Raised in message churches in Arizona and Michigan, she recounted how biracial relationships were discouraged, even among teenagers. People still don't let a white girl marry a black boy, she said, highlighting how deeply ingrained these prejudices remain within the movement. Historical context and ties to white supremacy. The racist ideologies in the message cult are not anomalies. They are rooted in the historical context of Branham's ministry and his associations with white supremacists. Branham's ties to figures like Roy E. Davis, a high-ranking member of the Ku Klux Klan, are well documented. Davis, who mentored Branham and ordained him as a preacher, was instrumental in introducing Branham to doctrines like British Israelism, a belief that white Anglo-Saxons are the true descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. This theology further fueled Branham's racial rhetoric, casting Jews and people of color as inferior. Branham's infamous serpent seed doctrine, which claims that Eve's union with the serpent produced a cursed bloodline, was another avenue through which he propagated racial superiority. Although Branham avoided explicitly naming races in this doctrine, its implications were clear. Black people and Jews were often associated with the so-called evil bloodline, further entrenching discriminatory attitudes with.
Now, I didn't pick up the Jews when I was, in that bloodline, but I did pick up Ham, and his walk through the serpent seed, where he get the serpent seed from, but he would take scripture out of context, and they still do follow his teachings in that way.
Within his following. Of the Jews, Branham said, the gospel is not even to them. The racism perpetuated by Branham's teachings has had devastating effects on members of the message movement. Martin Mayne spoke candidly about the internalized hatred he developed as a result of the church's doctrines. For a long time, it destroyed me on the inside, he admitted, recounting how he once felt ashamed of his race. However, after leaving the movement, Martin experienced a transformative realization. He said, quote, "When I realized that it wasn't true, every racist thing I had heard, every racist thing I had experienced immediately became so invalidated in my mind." This journey toward self-acceptance is but one example of the profound psychological toll of living under Branham's teachings. The broader societal impact is equally troubling. The message churches, which often operate in isolation, create echo chambers that reinforce prejudice and hinder progress.
That is true.
By framing racism as a divine mandate, these churches perpetuate a cycle of discrimination that affects not only their members, but also the communities they inhabit. Former members have called for accountability, urging the movement's leaders to confront the harm caused by these doctrines.
They don't see as no harm.
The work of journalists like Hamer and Stellar is critical in exposing these issues to a wider audience. Through interviews with former members, reviews of archival materials, and analysis of current sermons, they have provided an unflinching look at the message movement's dark underbelly. Their reporting has empowered individuals like Martin to share their stories, breaking the silence that often surrounds such insular communities. The journalists' investigation also highlights the importance of holding religious leaders accountable for the harm caused by their teachings. While Branham's followers insist that his views were misunderstood or taken out of context, the evidence speaks for itself.
Yes, sir.
His sermons and the continued actions of his followers reveal a legacy of racism that cannot be ignored.
Exactly.
As the message movement continues to influence millions worldwide, it is imperative to address the racism entrenched in its doctrines. Martin Mayne's story is a powerful reminder of the damage these teachings can inflict, particularly on young, impressionable individuals. It's not just that he said it, Martin reflected. It's that his racism spread and still influences so many people around the world today. His racism lingers long after his death. Change must begin within the message community itself, with pastors and leaders taking a stand against the harmful ideologies that have defined the movement for so long.
I don't see that happening as a whole. I see them doubling down. The more you expose them, the more it might, in some areas, might get lukewarm, as they would see it, this church, or they allow this, or this church, they allow that. But as a whole, this is their gospel. This is their truth. So for someone to go against it, say a pastor goes against it, then he will be um, pushed out of the fellowship of churches. In other words, all right, I don't, the pastor get up there, deacons or someone, and say, I don't want y'all going to visit so and so church. They're intermarrying and they're causing trouble. They're not following the prophet. They're not doing what the prophet said. So I just like with the Latter-day Saints or Jehovah's Witness, it is their lifeblood. Um, William Marion Branham's words is their lifeblood. So I don't see them getting off it as a whole, even these little things, even though they change a little, maybe sort of kind of, but they get cast out of the fellowship.
External pressure from media, activists, and former members can also play a crucial role in challenging the status quo. Racism in any form is unacceptable, and its presence in religious institutions is particularly insidious. By confronting the toxic legacy of William Branham's teachings, we can take a step toward healing the wounds inflicted on countless individuals and ensuring that future generations are not subjected to the same prejudice.
Just one thought on that last little bit. That hybrid, that is so true. Right here.
Are not subjected.
All right. Taught that mulattoes and all children are like serpent seed, they're hybrid. So now they can take it at different ways. And again, how the pastor, evangelist, preacher brings it out. But they come across as all knowing. And this is unchangeable. Yet they are not as pure they think they are, of course, but it is deeply entrenched in their belief. So I want to point that out. Overall, good video. I'm hope to continue this little series. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment, like, subscribe. Thanks for dropping in.